Good morning, everybody. This is Dorothy calling you from Indianapolis here on Wednesday morning. I hope everybody's doing okay. Looks like we've got a pretty good group with us so far today. We should have about 11 registered. So looks like we have Beth, Linda, Morgan, Rachel, and Reggie. Good to see Reggie again. He's been with us pretty much all week, so it's nice to have you here. Glad that you all joined us. This class today, as you saw, is going to be on adding and editing timeline information. So lots of good information in this class. What I'd like you to do is to look over on the left-hand side of your ReadyTalk window, and there you should be able to see there's an area where you can chat back to me. I'm going to send all of you a quick chat from right here. This is how I do it on my screen. What I'm looking for, those of you that have been with me before, I just need to know if you can hear me okay before we get started. So if everybody could respond back to this and let me know if you can hear. Morgan, thank you. Reggie, thanks. He's all good to go. So Rachel, perfect. All right. Well, I think that we're going to go ahead and get started. So thanks, everybody. So we're going to go over and switch to Bloomerang. Now, in this class, what we're going to look at today is the timeline. And those of you that were maybe with me earlier in the week when we talked about constituent information, we kind of said, well, we're going to skip timeline. We're going to talk about that in its own class. And so that's what we're going to be doing today. And just for a little information about the timeline is where you go to track the historical information for the person or your constituents in your database. So what that means is you can keep track there of any contributions or pledges or pledge payments or soft credits or in-kind gifts. All of those things are entered onto the timeline, as well as contact information or contact management information, if you want to think of it that way. Like, did you call somebody? Did you, did you send an email to someone? Did you have a personal meeting with somebody? All of that is information that we can go in and take a look at as we're looking at the timeline. So the first thing we're going to do is I need to look up somebody that's going to serve as our example today. So I'm going to come down here to my second icon down. I'm going to go ahead and give that a click. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for a gentleman named Nick Fury. And once I click on Nick, I'm going to do a search here. And we're going to go ahead, and there he is, Nicholas Fury. We're going to go ahead and select him. And once we've selected Nick, you can see that we are currently on his summary screen. And nothing much is happening with Nick. You can see that there's nothing here showing up on his giving summary. His engagement level is set to cold. Just nothing going on with him at all. So this lets me know that if I go and look at his timeline, that obviously there are no entries there, other than we did have a task set up for him. But he's not given us anything. He hasn't, contacted us in any way. We reached out to him to contact him about a meeting, but we really have not had any contact with him at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here, and there is a big blue drop-down arrow up here. If I click this big blue drop-down arrow, you can see that everything from new donation down to new note are listed here on this list. Now, new relationship you can add from here, but of course that's going to show up on the relationships tab. But everything else on this list shows up on the timeline. So what we're going to do today, we're just going to go down this list. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go in for Nick, and we're going to add a new donation for him. So I'm just going to come here and click New Donation. Now, once I click New Donation, you're going to see that we're brought up to the New Donation screen. And we're going to spend a few minutes on this screen because what you're going to find is that a lot of these fields you will see on other gift entry screens. So when we go to the other entries, they'll go a little bit quicker. But a lot of these fields are standard on all of our donation screens. So the first thing you're going to notice in Bloomerang, as always, is that there are fields that are labeled in green. And if you see something that's labeled in green, that simply means that it's required. So date, amount, fund, and method are our 4 fields on here that are required. Now, when you open up something onto the timeline and the date field pops up, the date always defaults to today's date. So today is April 12th. And so that means that I'm entering my donations in for today. Now, if you happen to maybe be off yesterday and you're just now getting around to doing yesterday's transactions, you can always change this. You can use our little dated tool here to help you select whatever date you want, or you can always just type in the date as well. But I'm just going to leave it at the default. But do know that when you open up something new on the timeline, it always defaults to today's date. Now, the next field we come to is the amount. And we're going to say that Nick is being very generous today, and he sent us a check for $500. So I'm going to go in there and enter that amount. So again, the amount is something that, is a required field. Just so you know, you can have a zero amount as well. And I'll talk about when you would use that zero amount in just a bit. But as long as you put something in here, you can't leave it blank, but you could put a zero or you could put the actual amount of the gift. And this is what Nick has given us today. Now, the next field down, which is not required, it's an optional field, is the non-deductible field. Non-deductible simply means is there a portion of this donation that Nick won't be able to claim on his taxes next year. If there is a portion of that contribution that is not tax deductible, you would put it in that area there if you keep track of it. Otherwise, you can just leave it blank. It's not required, but that is where any non-tax deductible amount would go, would be right there in that field. Now, the next thing we're going to have here, we have 3 fields here that are called Fund, Campaign, and Appeal. Now, these 3 fields, they're all drop-down boxes. As you can see, they all have a little drop-down box next to them. And one of them, the fund, is actually required. Now, these fields, as you can see with the drop-down box, had values in them. And those of you that are doing a conversion, and I think probably the majority of you are, you're either doing a quick start or a custom conversion. What you'll find is you probably have fields in your data that are equivalent to these fields. Just to let you know what they are, and again, these are fields that you will see in all of our gift fields that we have, all of our donation fields. The first one is the fund, and you can see that if I click my drop-down arrow here, I have some examples of some funds here. Funds tell you where the money goes. Where is this money earmarked to go? Is it for just your general operating fund, or is it maybe an unrestricted fund? Is it possibly for something you're raising money for that is either a special project or program? These would be the different funds that you have. Now, in this situation, I'm going to say that Nick is giving us a gift to the Sophie McIver Scholarship Fund. That's where his gift is designated to go, so that's the fund that I'm going to select for that. And like I said, fund is always required in Bloomerang. We need to know where that money is going. Now, the next field we have is a campaign field, and again, it's also a drop-down box, and you can see I've got some examples here as well. Notice that these have a year associated with them. I do this just because I think it makes reporting a breeze. If I want to see all of the gifts that have come in for the 2017 annual campaign, I select my campaign field in the report filter of 2017 annual campaign. It's as easy as that. So I usually have a year associated with each campaign. You don't have to do it that way for campaigns. You can always use your date ranges, but this way there's no question about what campaign and what year this gift was for. So I'm going to say that this Sophie McIver Scholarship Fund is all part of my annual campaign. Now, normally with campaigns, you have a goal associated with them. Like an annual campaign, maybe you're an organization that has planning meetings and you know how much your budget is for the organization and how much of that budget needs to come from fundraising, and you may have a specific dollar amount goal that you need to raise for this year. Generally, then that would become your annual campaign goal. When you create these campaigns under our settings area here, there is a spot where you can put in a goal for how much you want to raise for that particular campaign. And you can have that display on your dashboard if you need to, so you can kind of see how your progress is going along. So again, campaigns generally have a goal associated with them. Most everybody would have an annual campaign because you have an amount in mind. If you don't, maybe you're just a small shop and just getting started and you're happy to get any donations you can get. Maybe you don't have an annual campaign just yet. So again, it's an optional field, but it's quite a helpful field if you do use it. And then the last of these three drop-down boxes we have is called the appeal. And the appeal is generally, what did I do during maybe the course of this year to cause people to want to give me a gift? Now you can see that I have several here. I have some from 2016, but you can see an appeal is generally something like they gave the gift because they received a mailing. They gave the gift because they attended an event. We don't know why they gave the gift. It was unsolicited. I have no idea why they gave the gift. They just did. Personal solicitation. Somebody actually asked them to give the gift. So again, the appeal I always like to use because I feel that when you're doing something to raise money, most of the time there is a bit of a cost involved as well, such as if I'm doing a mailing, I have, printing fees, I have postage, those kinds of things. Or if I'm throwing an event, I'm spending money for that event. So I would probably want to know how much I raised for that particular event. And if I use the event as an appeal, then I'll be able to tell how much did I actually raise for that particular event. So again, it's kind of important to keep track of these if you'd like, so that you know where your money is coming from, for one thing. And then also, if you had to spend a little money to get that done, you'll be able to see how many gifts came in because of that. And I'm going to say that Nick gave this gift because I just sent out my spring appeal. So I want to make sure that I know that this gift will be counted toward the amount that was raised because of that spring appeal. So that's what this does. Now, like I said, you will have equivalents in your database when we're converting it, so your values will appear here. We will, determine which is your fund, campaign, and appeal. And again, from describing it, you probably know which ones those are, and we'll populate these three fields for you. But as I said, you can always add to them once you're live and moving forward by coming down here to settings. And again, if I click on settings, you can see right here, funds, campaigns, and appeals are listed right there where you can go in and add to those if you need to. Now, the last required field that we have on a gift screen is the method. And the method is basically, how did he pay for it? Was it through his credit card? Did he send us a check? How did he pay for this $500 gift? And you can see that depending on which one of these you select, cash is just cash. It defaults to that. But if I click to check, you can see that a number and a date appear. I could put the check number in and the date. If it's a credit card transaction and you are set up with either Stripe or BluePay to have Bloomerang process your credit cards for you, you will see that you would select what processor you're using, whether it's Stripe or BluePay. You set that up also under settings. You would put in the card number, the security code, and the expiration date. And then when I save this gift, all of this information would go to Stripe or BluePay, depending on who it is you're using, and that way they will be able to process your credit card for you. So that's what you would do with the credit card information. One thing too about the credit card information is once you send that over to Stripe, Bloomerang will take the numbers here, especially the security code and the card number, and replace it with asterisks, so that way no one can access that credit card number within Bloomerang. That's all over now, been sent to Stripe. The expiration date, however, does still appear, and that way we also have reports that you can run. You can filter on people that have, say, an expiration date coming up in May. I might want to be a little proactive and see how many credit cards are coming along that maybe will be expiring next month, so you could do that as well. We also have EFT, electronic funds transfer, as a method. Again, if you're doing electronic funds transfer, you're going to use BluePay. BluePay is also a credit card processor, but BluePay, in addition to that, also processes electronic funds transfer gifts. So you would have that information here. And then lastly, we have in-kind. Now, in-kind gifts, as you know, are either goods or services. You know, you're donating a piece of furniture or a computer or something to the organization, or you're donating your time. Maybe you are an attorney or an accountant or something, or a consultant or something that's donating time to your organization, and you want to record that as an in-kind gift. Now, remember I mentioned up here that there may be times you want to do a zero gift. If that's the case, you may want to do that with your in-kind gift. Some organizations will. They will have a zero amount in the in-kind gift, and then they come down here and fill out the fair market value. Some people will put the value of the gift up here as a donation, but you can decide to do it either way you want. It's kind of up to you. Like I said, kind of the standard is you would make a $0 amount transaction, and then under in-kind, you would fill out whether it is a goods or a service. You would then put in the fair market value of that good or service that they sent you. And you got a spot here for a description of that as well, so you can be a little bit more descriptive about that gift in kind. So that's the different methods that we have, or how did they pay for this gift? This is what the method will tell us. Now I'm going to go back to check because I don't have a credit card here. So I'm just going to go in and say he gave us check number 1234, and we're going to say that that check was dated Monday, let's say. So we're going to go ahead and put that in. Now, once we get that information, you can see that we have a note field here. So again, method, except on when you're setting up a pledge, but method, campaign fund, appeal, all of these fields you'll see on any transaction field that you're doing. So next we have note, and this is just a free form space here where you can go in and enter in any bit of information that you want about this gift. It's just a spot for you to enter in a note. Now, also, we have over here on the right-hand side the ability to add soft credits, tributes, and attachments. And we'll talk about acknowledgments here in a bit. If I want to add a soft credit to this, now, some people use soft credits and some people don't. I come from an accounting background, and when I first started working with nonprofits many years ago and they explained to me what a soft credit was, I thought, boy, I just don't get that. How can you count something twice? But really, soft credits are more for recognition type purposes. So let's say that I happen to know that one of our board members was very influential in getting Nick to send us this gift and to start getting involved with us. So I want to soft credit that board member this $500. So I'm going to come here to soft credit and click the plus sign to add. And you can see that it comes up to where I can search for a constituent. So I'm going to search for Anthony Stark, and if I can type here, I will be able to do that. So here we go, use my autofill there, and there he is. There's Anthony Stark. So I'm going to go ahead and select him. So you can see that I can soft credit him the entire amount, or I could just do a portion of that gift as well. And so those of you that use soft credits, you know that you probably use them for, business owners that use soft credit their personal account for the amount that the business gave, or sometimes United Way donors will use soft credits to determine, United Way sent the check, but you need to split it out between a lot of different people. You can use soft credits to help you with that. Lots of different scenarios for soft credits, but usually it's a recognition or an acknowledgement, if you will, of someone who had some type of influence on this gift. So you can see that we've done that. Now, if I were to go to Anthony Stark's record, that soft credit will appear on his timeline. And if I click on that gift in Anthony Stark's timeline, that soft credit, it will refer me back to Nick's gift. So you would be able to see that. Now, the other thing that we can add to these gifts are tributes. And as you know, tributes are generally either in memory of or in honor of someone. Usually in honor of like a birthday or retirement or something. And then, of course, the in memory ones are for those that have unfortunately passed on. So I'm going to come here to Tribute, and I want to add a tribute to this gift. So I'm going to click again my plus sign here to add one, and I'm going to search for my tribute in Bloomerang, which is Sophie. And we're going to go ahead and select her. Now, if you notice that there is a notificate being shown for Sophie, which is me, and what this simply means is that if a gift comes in that is going to be tributed to them, I'd like to be notified. So I can jot this down, and you would be able to send me a card or whatever it is you wanted to do to notify me that a gift came in from Sophie. So I'm going to go ahead and select Sophie here, and you can see, again, tributes are something you also set up over here under Settings. You can see there are tributes, and I set this up that it is in memory of Sophie, and again, I was able to put in that I was the notificant. So now you can see that we've got this gift is soft credited to Tony Stark, but it's a tribute gift in honor of Sophie. And then lastly, we come down here to our attachments. We're going to talk about acknowledgments in a minute, but if you've got any kind of a document, like if you're setting up a new pledge transaction and you've got maybe a photocopy or a file of that pledge card that they send in, or there's something else that you need to attach to this, you can always come here on our timeline items and click the attached plus sign here, and you can click either a link to a web page or you could do add file. If you click add file, you can see that then you're able to come out and browse around your computer to find that file, and once you have attached that, then it will appear here under attachments. You also have the ability, you can delete the attachment if you need to. This is brand new, so this just came out, so very excited to be able to do that. Now, the last thing I want to talk about on our standard gift fields here are the acknowledgments. And hopefully a lot of you have signed up to take the Creating Letters class. Generally that's taught by Susie. And Susie will talk about how you will go in and create your thank you letters out of Bloomerang. And the one thing about Bloomerang is when you use it to do your thank you letters, it will automatically update this acknowledgement area for you. What this is asking me is, have you thanked Nick for this gift yet? That's what it's asking. Has it been acknowledged? No, it hasn't. I haven't thanked him yet. If I leave this at no, then Bloomerang will go and create the letter, and then it will come back and flag this as yes, it's been acknowledged. It'll automatically change it for you, as well as place the date and the name of the letter that he received here. So this all happens automatically if you leave it at no. Now you can also manually select these if you want. Like let's say that I'm going to send Nick a personal note. I'm not going to let Bloomerang just do the generic thank you letter. So I could say, yes, I'm going to acknowledge it, and I could put down here in the note that I sent the thank you letter, or maybe I typed up or I wrote up a handwritten note to him or something. So I could do that. And then your other choice here is do not acknowledge. Let's say that Nick says, I move around quite a bit. You don't really need to acknowledge me for anything. You could just leave that at do not acknowledge. And then when you're doing your thank you letters, you can exclude people that have either yes or do not acknowledge, so that a letter won't generate for them, and it will only generate for those that say no. And like I said, then Bloomerang comes back and changes it to yes. Okay, so I'm going to leave this set at no so I can let Bloomerang create the thank you letter. And those are all the standard Bloomerang fields on all of our different types of transactions. Now, lastly, we have the base. You can see base events, and you can say there's some other fields down here. These are custom fields. Now, just as you can have custom fields that appear on the profile page for a constituent, you can also have custom fields appear on transactions. So if you have fields that you need that pertain to transactions, you can also create custom fields for those as well. And you can see I've just got some examples here. But if you're selling tickets to an event or something like that, you might want to have some custom fields so that you'll be able to do that easily. So you can always add custom fields to anything on the timeline except tasks. You can't add a custom field to those. But now I'm going to go ahead and click Save, and now you can see we're back to the timeline, and now you can see that we have Nick's donations showing up here. Okay? Now, the next thing we're going to do, we're going to come up here and click the down arrow, and the next thing I'm going to do is a pledge. Now, like I said, we spent quite a few minutes on the donation, but you'll see a lot of these fields are exactly the same. So again, we're now going to say Nick's getting all excited, and he's decided he wants to make a longer term commitment with us. So what he's going to do is he is going to make a pledge. And again, I'm just going to take the default day of today, and we're going to go in, and you can see now it is a new pledge that we're doing. I'm going to go in and say that he's going to make a $10,000 pledge. Now, if you notice over here, these are all basically the same. Non-deductible, fund, campaign, appeal, note, soft credits, tributes, the acknowledgments. That's all the same that we saw before. The only difference with the pledge is that we get a schedule involved. Okay, so you can see that we have frequencies here of weekly, monthly, quarterly, or yearly. By default, Bloomerang sets to monthly. We also have, as you can see, that once I enter an amount here, Bloomerang will automatically calculate the installment amount for me. It also defaults that the first payment is going to be due 1 month from today. Now, these are not carved in stone. They just set this up just to help you. It just kind of puts them in as a default. Like maybe the person hasn't told you what they want to do, so you could just take the default here to at least get it into the system. But let's say that Nick has told you that he wants to take 2 years to pay off this pledge. Well, what you would do, because right now it's set to 12 monthly payments starting a month from now at $834. If I still want this to be monthly, but I want it to take twice as long, all I have to do is change the installment amount. So half of $834, I'm going to make it $417, and that's his installment amount. So now you'll see in a bit how it will calculate the proper number of payments it will take to satisfy that pledge in 24 months, because we've doubled the pledge, okay, or doubled the amount of the length of time because we cut the payment in half. And then also for first installment, you can change this as well. Let's say Nick says, and I'm going to make my first installment due, I want my installments to be due on the first of the month. So you can see I can change that as well. So now you can see that once we have our new pledge schedule worked out, everything else now is the same. I can go in here and I'm going to say he's given this to the endowment. I'm counting it toward the endowment campaign, and I'm going to say the appeal is because we asked him to give the gift. So we're going to do a personal solicitation there. I could still soft credit Tony Stark if I wanted to, make it to a tribute if I want. I'm going to leave the acknowledgement as no, don't have an attachment, but if I did, I could add that here. And then also you can see that my custom fields appear as well. So now I'm going to come in here and click Save. So now when we go back to his timeline, you can see not only his $500 donation, but we can also see that we've now created him a $10,000 monthly pledge that's going to pay off at $417 a month. Should take about 24 payments to do that, and you can see that we also have it set to be paid on the first of the month. Now, the next logical thing that I need to show you is how do you do a payment on a pledge. So there are 2 ways to do it. First, you can always come back to the original pledge transaction. And this is also how, if there's something here on the timeline that you need to edit or change, you just simply come to whatever item it is and click on it. So, if I click on the pledge here, you can see that now on the pledge, where in this place of entering the variables for the schedule, we now have that it shows the $10,000 balance, and the next installment is due on May 1st, okay? You can also see here that there is a new payment screen, okay? So that means if I want to make a payment for this pledge, I can do it right here. I can go ahead and click New Payment, and then I can go in and you'll see that I can put in the amount of the payment, and I'm going to put in as $417. And really the only other thing I need to do is how did he pay for it? And again, I'm going to say he wrote a check, and we're going to put that in, and we're going to say that was dated today. We're going to say he just paid that first payment while we were talking to him today. So we're going to go ahead and do that. There's a note there. Again, attachment, how do I want him to be acknowledged? And you can see that all the custom fields also appear here as well. So now I can go in here and click Save. And now when I click Save, you'll see that there are three transactions on the timeline. We have donation, we have the pledge, and then we have the pledge payment. Now, if I want to see how that payment affected that pledge, I can come here and click on the pledge transaction. Now you can see that the balance has been reduced, and you can also see that the next installment date is showing for June 1st. It's now, we paid the May 1st one early. Now the next payment is due on June 1st. So you can also see here that there is a button here that is a write-off button on the pledge. And what this means is, let's say that for whatever reason Nick leaves the community, or we no longer hear from him, or he's not paying on the pledge, and after a while we think, we just need to write this pledge off. I can click on write off here, and what it will do is it will write this amount off and bring the balance down to 0, so that if you're doing any kind of reporting on, say, open pledges or anything like that, he won't be included because his balance is down to 0. Okay, so that's what the write-off would do. And so anyway, again, if we're looking at the pledge, I'm going to go ahead and go back to the timeline here. And one other thing that I want to show you is that there is another way to make a pledge payment as well. Let's say that you don't really remember if he has a pledge, or maybe when you pull up his record here, if we go to his profile page, I can't really tell if he's got a pledge or not. So let's say, okay, I go over here to the drop down arrow and I do new donation. I've got a check in my hand from Nick. So I'm going to do a new donation. Now, since he has a pledge, instead of taking me directly into the entry screen, it stops you here and says, hang on, is this part of a pledge payment, or does he have a recurring donation schedule here? So if that's the case, then you would go ahead and say, yep, it's a new payment, or no thanks, I'm just going to add it as a regular donation. So even if you don't know if he has a pledge, if that pledge is in Bloomerang, Bloomerang will remind you that he has a pledge. Okay? Now, I'm going to go back to the timeline, and there's one other thing that we can do on a pledge that I wanted to show you, and that's to come down here. We're going to click on Pledge, and I want to come over here and look at the schedule. So let's say that Nick has got some changes he needs to make to his payment schedule. So if I want to come here, I can click on Schedule, and you'll see that our schedule slides out here, and you can see it shows now that the first payment has been made, and it shows all of the upcoming payments as well. And you can see that sure enough, it's going to take him a couple of years to pay that off. But what if I need to edit this? Let's say that Nick tells me he's going to be out of the country in August. He's not going to be able to make that August payment, but he wants to know if he could double up on a payment to make up for it. If that's what he wants to do, you can come down here to Edit, and when you click on Edit at the bottom of the schedule, you can see here are all of the installments. Here's his August installment, and there's a drop-down box there. If I click drop-down here, you can see that I can remove this payment. He's not going to be able to make that payment in August. When I click Remove, Bloomerang right away comes up and says, wait a minute, your installments don't add up to the $10,000 pledge. So I can either come down here at the bottom of the pledge, and maybe I want to add a new installment at the tail end of the pledge. If I do, I can come down here and do New Installment. And let's say that he's going to make this due on May 1st of 2019, let's say. And I'm going to go ahead and make the amount $417, and I'm going to go ahead and click Update. And now you can see Bloomerang has now thought, okay, we've got the 10,000 back, so that little warning message is gone. And now I've added a pledge at the end of the schedule. You can also modify the whole payment schedule as well. Like let's say too that instead of doing the payment at the end, I can go here and let me remove that payment. Again, there's my warning message that the payments don't add up. Let's say that he says, okay, what I'm going to do is I will double up my September payment instead of adding one at the end. So I can come here and click the down arrow and click Edit. And then I can come in here. You see I now have access to the date and the amount. So he's going to make up his payment he's missing. I'm going to double this one. So we're going to go ahead and say Update here. My warning message goes away, and now you can see that during his schedule, now we've adapted it so that he misses the August payment, but we've now doubled up his September payment. So hopefully you can see that with the ability to add new installments, the ability to remove installments, and also edit both the date and the amount of installments, you can modify these pretty much any way anybody needs to have their schedule set up. So you're able to do that very easily within Bloomerang. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and click Save. All right? Now, once we've clicked Save again, you can see there's the write-off button. And there's one other gift I want to show you. I'm going to go back to Nick's timeline here. And once I go into his timeline, I'm going to come down here to his donation. Now that he has an actual pledge on file, he will now have on all of his donations, if we click on them to edit them, I can now convert any of these donations to a payment on his pledge. So let's just say that somehow a payment got entered in as a donation and you now want to count that toward the pledge. You would just come here and click on Convert to Payment, and you're going to see here it'll say, is this the pledge, where you want to apply that as a payment. So again, if something happens where there's a pledge payment somewhere, or I'm sorry, if there's a donation somewhere that should have been a pledge payment, then you would be able to come here and convert it to a payment if you need to. So we've got that kind of tied in there for you as well. Now, the last thing we're going to look at for donations will be our recurring donations. And I think recurring donations are really a win-win situation, both for your constituents and also for you. I know that I have a couple organizations here in town that I feel very strongly about, and I like to donate to them when I can. But I am not the type of person, I don't have the funds that I can pull out my checkbook and write you a check for $1,000. I just can't do that. It's not in my budget. But I can say, you know, I have this credit card, and if you would take $50 a month out of my credit card, I can, you know, donate that way. And what normally happens is that I don't even feel that it's there. They have my debit card number, so it comes right out of my checking account that way. And it's just easier to keep it there, and as far as I'm concerned, you know, the organization is getting my monthly payment that way, and it's no pain for me because it comes out automatically. So if you're setting up a recurring donation, it's a little bit like a pledge in that you would enter in the amount. Let's say Nick says he's going to do $50 a month. You would also come down here, and again, you would select your fund. You would select what campaign it's associated with and was there an appeal. And then you would also say, okay, how is he going to pay for this? If you do credit card, you know, we talked about this already, you would fill out all of this credit card information. When you click Save on a recurring donation, not only does Bloomerang send all of the credit card information over to Stripe to take that first payment, but it also sends Stripe the schedule information. Let's say that he wants to make this on a monthly payment and he wants it to come out, he wants it to start on, let's say, May 15th. So all of this information will go over to Stripe. It'll take his first payment on what the start date is, and it will do so every month on the 15th after that until he tells you to stop. If he tells you to stop, you simply come in here, type in an end date, and click Save. Then that end date will also go over to Stripe as well. So then every month what would happen is if there is no end date, this payment will be taken from his credit card by Stripe, and Bloomerang will automatically create an entry for you there as well if it's a credit card transaction. If you have like a check, someone that sends in a monthly check, and you want to refer to it as recurring, you can. But most folks, I find, use the recurring gifts because the credit card option just makes it so seamless and so automatic and easy for everyone. Okay? Now, I'm not going to save this transaction because, again, I don't have a credit card number, but I did want to kind of walk you through that process so that you can see how you would create a recurring donation. All right, everybody, so that's all of the different types of transactions that you can enter onto the timeline. And so for these last few minutes of the class today, we're going to shift gears for a bit, and we're going to talk about what I had referred to at the beginning of the class when I said that we can do contact management things as well with the timeline. Now, contact management, as you know, is just where you're working with people, you're trying to cultivate them, that you are trying to get them to be a little bit more engaged with you in the organization. So you're not going to be doing some of these things with everybody because, you know, that person that sends you $5 every holiday season, you know, this is not somebody you're cultivating a lot and going to be making entries for. These will be for your major gift donors or your board members or something like that. So the first thing I want to talk about in our contact management type items, I'm going to click my down arrow again, and the first thing we're going to look at is an interaction. Now, Bloomerang uses interactions as well. One of the things that Bloomerang will do, and you'll see this when you take the letter and email class, if you take them this month with Susie, Bloomerang will create an interaction every time a letter is sent and every time a mass email is sent. Susie will demonstrate all that for you to show you what the interaction looks like. But they're really very cool. Like for the letter interactions, it will give you a copy of the letter. It'll tell you the date of the letter. You can reproduce the letter if you need to from there. And then with email, it will also create an interaction, and it will show you like who opened an email, who clicked on a link, did they unsubscribe from that email. So lots of really great things that Bloomerang uses interactions for automatically. But what I'm going to show you right now is just a one-off interaction. This is something, again, if you're cultivating somebody and you're in contact with them, this is something the interaction will help you with. So I'm going to say that Nick is all fired up about my organization. Now he wants to know if he could maybe also be on the board of directors. So we're going to say that today he emailed me about becoming a board member. So I'm going to use my autofill there. And I could come down here and put a note if I wanted to, or I could copy the text of his email and paste it in here if I wanted to, or even if he mailed me in something, I could make a file copy of it and attach the file here if I needed to. But again, I'm going to come up here to purpose, and in Bloomerang, the purpose for an interaction is, why are we contacting each other? Why are we interacting with each other? So these are some best practices that Bloomerang has installed here for you of kind of fundraising best practices of interactions, what you would be interacting with someone about. So I'm going to say that I'm going to call this, we're going to do impact cultivation because I'm kind of cultivating him here. So that's what I'm going to select. Now, once I've selected that, you can see the next field that we have is channel. Channel is, how did you contact him? Email, in person, you know, how was this interaction done? Well, Nick emailed me, so that's what I'm going to select for my channel. But you can see we've got a bunch of them there. We pretty much have everything we could think of ways to contact people. So I'm going to go ahead and click on email. Now, if you notice, though, date, purpose, subject, and channel are in green, so that means that these four fields are required on an interaction. But you also have a note here that will ask you, you know, if you want to put something in there about being on the board. Now, there's one other field here I need to mention, and that is initiated by constituent. Now, as you probably know, when we took a quick peek at Nick's profile page, or I'm sorry, Nick's summary screen, Bloomerang offers you that engagement level, and we're going to go back and look at his engagement level in just a bit, because as you know, he was showing us cold when we started class. Now, if I want to say that he was the one that emailed me, I would come down here and do initiated by constituent. This will help with his with his engagement level as well. So if it was initiated by the constituent, then you would want to note that here to say that Nick is the one that emailed me. If I emailed him, then I wouldn't select that. So again, that's what initiated by constituent means. It means that he was the one that contacted me. Okay? Now, of course, on our interactions, you can also have custom fields. And you can see that two of the most common ones that we see are for volunteer information and for event information. So if you're tracking volunteer hours in Bloomerang, we recommend you use interactions. You can see I've got some custom fields here where I could choose a project somebody worked on, what activity did they do, and then how many hours did they work. And again, if I mark as initiated by constituent, then these volunteer hours would also count toward their engagement level. And same way with event participation. You can see that I can show what event he came to, and did he accept the invitation and maybe didn't show up, or did he actually attend it. So again, that will also select, if you do initiated by constituent, that will also affect the engagement level as well. Okay? All right, so I'm going to come up here and I'm going to click Save to save this interaction. And you can see that now we've got our donations down here that are signified by gift boxes. Now you can see we've got our email here. This little conversation bubble lets us know that it is an interaction. Okay? And again, if I ever need to go in and add notes to it or whatever, you just click on it and that takes you right back into that screen. Okay? Now, the next thing we want to do is we're going to come up here to the drop-down arrow. And the next thing I want to talk about, we're going to do task last, but the next thing I want to talk about is the new note. So we're going to go ahead and click here on new note. And the note is just that. It's a big old electronic sticky note. You again have the ability that you could add an attachment here. If you have a file of a document that you want to attach to this, you're always able to do that. The thing that you would want to do with notes, you can see the only two fields that are required are date and note. Couldn't be any easier than that. So a note is something where you didn't necessarily interact with this person. It's just some information you know about them. You maybe don't want to create a custom field. You just want to put a note somewhere that it'll remind you of this information. So I'm going to say that on this note, I was happening to, let's say, read something in the newspaper, or I saw it online, that he was also a member of the board of our symphony. So I'm going to put also on the board of the, we call it the ISO. Excuse me. So we're going to say that he's also on the board of the ISO. That's just information. He didn't tell me that. I learned it on my own. I just want a spot to put it. You could put children's names here. You could put, maybe there's some kind of a medical emergency or a health issue in their family, and you want to make a note of it so that you can ask him about it next time, or just anything like that that you would want to put here in the note. So once you get your note established, of course, you would go ahead and click Save. Excuse me. Now, you can also have custom fields on notes as well. One of the more common things that we see are grant tracking fields. Now, as you know, getting a grant, you would enter it in as a donation or a pledge or however it comes in. But there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes when you're trying to get a grant. You have to write the grant, you have submission dates, you've got, award amounts that you're asking for. There's a progress report you need to send. There's all kinds of things that need to be done in order to get that grant. So you can see that we could use notes here to create a series of custom fields of the information you need to have to track your grants. And then, of course, we can build reports based off of the note information, and you can create reports on your grant information. You can do the same thing in the interaction as well with your volunteers or your event information. You can create interaction reports and pull those custom fields out into a report as well. But for this situation, all I need is just to say that I learned something about him and I've created my note. And you can see that when I click save, that it's going to go ahead here and save my note. And you can see that now here it is on the timeline for him. Now, the last thing we're going to look at, just going to take a couple of minutes here, is we're going to look at tasks. Now, if you want more information on tasks, I just taught a class about it yesterday, but there is a recording available of that class, and I'm going to show you before we sign off today how to get access to all of these recordings. But for all intents and purposes, a task is where you're just going in and you're setting up something that you need to do, and you can associate it with a constituent. So let's say that I'm a gift officer and Nick is in my portfolio of folks that I need to contact for fundraising, and I want to set up a meeting with him. I want to see, first of all, I want to thank him for his pledge and his donation. I also want to see how being a member of the board of the symphony might impact him wanting to be a member of our board. So I've got some things I need to discuss with him. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to my drop-down box again, and this time I'm going to select New Task. Now, once I select New Task, just like before, it defaults to today's date. But let's say that I want to take Nick to lunch, and I'm going to do this next Friday. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to set myself a task, and I'm going to say that we are going to have a lunch meeting to discuss board membership. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and put that in here. I can put a note down here, like maybe I have, remember to take info packet, let's say. So we can do that. And then also up here you can see that we can assign it to a different user. Now I'm logged into this database, so it's going to default to me. But let's say that I'm not going to be able to make it on the 21st, and that's the only day Nick can go. So let's say that Bruce Banner is my board recruiter. He's going to go and find out, what's going on here and get to know Nick a little bit better. So I can assign it to someone else if I want to as well. Or, like we saw, I can keep it myself if I need to do that. So you can assign it to someone. The purpose of this, again, is going to be impact cultivation, just like on the interaction. We just kind of need to know, what is this task? Why are we doing this? And then the channel, again, how are you contacting him? And this time it's going to be in person. And again, there's a spot there for an attachment if I need it. Now, I'm going to go ahead and save this task. And Nick already has a couple of tasks here, but we're going to look at this one for the 21st. So now you can see that I've got it set up that we're going to have a lunch meeting with him on the 21st. Okay? So that task has been created. Now, if I go back to the dashboard, you can see that there is an area up here for tasks. Okay? I'm logged in as Dorothy, so if I click here where it says My Tasks, it will show me this task that I just entered for next Friday, along with any other tasks that I might have. But if I go back to the dashboard again, and if I want to see all tasks across my organization, I can click this as well. So you can see there's a list of all of the tasks for everyone in the organization. And so what you can do is if you log in and there are tasks that belong to you, they will show up here under My Tasks. All of the tasks of the organization you'll be able to see here. So let's say that, I had a task out there for Nick that's due on Friday. Let's say that that task is completed. So I'm going to come up here to My Tasks, And I'm going to select this task that is due on the 12th. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this task. And once I click on this task, this one's due today, that we were supposed to discuss the gala. So I can put some notes in here about what we talked about. He's volunteering to be on the gala committee, so I've got that on there. And so I can come up here now to where I can complete this task. So if I click the down arrow, I can do a couple of things. I can mark the task as just complete. That's it. The task will show up on the timeline. I'm going to go ahead and say OK. You'll see that the task is showing up. If I go to Harry's timeline, it will show that, and if we go into Harry's account here, it will show up on his timeline with a little check in the box. That one's done. Okay, I finished that one. But if I go back to this task, and let's say that I decide to activate it again. Maybe I'm not quite finished with it, but I could decide that I want to turn that task. Let's say we get back from our meeting and I want to turn it into an interaction. I can save it as an interaction if I'd like to do that. So these are the two most common ones here. So if you're going to complete the task or turn it into an interaction. And I'm just going to go back and mark it as complete again. Okay? So that's what you would do then to manage your tasks. And now if I go back to my dashboard, you can see that I'm down to 2 tasks now. I just have the one here for Nick, and we can also see that's due soon. If I see all of them, you can see this is the ones for everybody, and then I can just see the ones for me here, and I'm down to 2 now because I completed that one. Okay? All right, so that's all the exciting things that we can add on to the timeline. And before we leave, I want to go back and look at Nick's summary screen so that you can see that all of this activity that we've been adding onto his timeline does indeed affect his engagement level. And if you recall, when we first got here, he didn't have anything going on. This was completely flat, and he was set to cold. But as you can see now, his engagement level, which is like a thermometer, has warmed up now quite a bit to hot. And so now we can see that he's really an active person as of now. And that's good. That's good to see that he is that way. You can also report on how their engagement level is. Like you could say, I want to run a report of everybody who's hot or on fire. Or maybe I just want a report of everybody that's cold. I want to send a special letter to them. So you will be able to use that engagement level as well. Okay? All right. Well, let's see if we have any questions here. Let's see. Reggie's got one. Why would Stark soft credit be in Nick's timeline? It's actually the gift will be in Nick's timeline. The soft credit would be in Tony Stark's timeline. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear about that. Nick's timeline would just show his donation, but if we go and look at Tony Stark's account, let's see, let me look at Tony here. Well, if I could type today, that would make this class go a lot better, don't you think? So we're going to go ahead and do Tony here. If I look up Tony Stark and go to his timeline, you can see there's the soft credit, okay? So you can see that's the soft credit for Nick's gift. Nick's got the actual gift in his timeline. Also, what if you're not sure if it's a credit card or EFT? If it's, you know, until you found out, Reggie, if I were you, I would maybe just leave it at cash or something till you found out, because they're two really different beasts there, two completely different things. You need a credit card number, or you need some information for the EFT. So I would certainly wait until you found out. Enter it as cash if you just want to get it in, and then you can always go back and change the method later. Let's see, Jessica, if you send out a newsletter to a large number of constituents, will Bloomerang update their interaction automatically, or do we have to do it one by one? No, it does it automatically. As I said, anytime you send out an email or a newsletter, an email or any kind of a letter, Bloomerang automatically creates an interaction for you. So you do not have to do that. Bloomerang does it for you automatically. Got time for a couple of more here. Does the timeline have a place to show who has been assigned a specific donor? That would probably be something that would be a custom field on the profile page. You would have something called solicitor or something like that. But if you wanted to have the solicitor show up just on the individual gift, you could have the custom field show up there. But most people put it on the profile because that's somebody that they're going to be working with that person. So that's what I would do there. Let's see, I don't want to talk to Stark if John has been the primary contact. Yeah, like I said, I would maybe do some type of a custom field probably on the profile page of something like solicitor or something like that that you could do down here. And then you would be able to see that they belong to that particular person. Okay? All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much. Good questions, and I'm really glad that you took time out of your day to join us. What I'm going to do is I'll be sending you a follow-up email after this class, and once you get that, you'll see there's an attachment to it. One last thing I want to show you, I mentioned some recordings that we have. If you come up here to our help section, which is this little question mark, and click the down arrow here, go to help and videos. When you click on Help and Videos, you land on the page that says, How can we help you today? If you continue to scroll down on this page, you're going to see that you get to the video section. These are just little 2 or 3 minute videos on how to do a simple task. But for the classes, if you want to come down here, you will see that we start getting to the Bloomerang Academy information. This is called Become a Bloomerang Taskmaster. If I click on all 9 of them, you can see that's the class that we had yesterday. And you can also see here that there are all of the beginner classes. So if some of you want to give those a look, you can do that. There's also the Bloomerang Academy Advanced classes as well. All of these are free. Be sure to look to see the entire list, and you can watch those at any time, okay? All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much, and I hope this was helpful. And I also hope that I get to see you all again in another session very soon. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.